Hey, welcome to Gideon Stuff. Today we're going to be taking a look at this guy. This is the Sencut Knives Scepter. And man, my lighting is terrible. That's okay, we're going to roll with it. So, this is a pretty new knife, and there's actually a lot to say about it. But, before I get into all that, I want to say, if you're new to the channel here, go ahead and consider clicking subscribe. Also, I know all of you are new to the channel here because this is my very first video. So, checkmate. Now that that's out of the way, I'm just kidding, let's go ahead and get into some specs and size comparisons. So, the first knife I'm going to bring out here is the Civivi Praxis, which I think is a pretty relevant comparison, and I will talk more about that here in a sec. Stop falling over, whatever. So anyways, we have an overall blade length of 2.97 inches, just a little bit shy of 3. We have an overall length of 6.91 inches, so pretty small knife, not big at all. We have a weight on this particular one of 2.4 ounces, right about in there, so not heavy at all. Now let's bring in another Civivi. This is another one I'm going to be comparing it to again. This is a McKenna. So as you can see, again, not big knife at all. And one more Civivi just because. This is the Copper Dogma. This particular knife here, this is the brown micarta version. You can get these in a bunch of different colors of G10 and I think a green micarta. I'm not sure. Here is the Benchmade Bug Out. I picked this guy up on Amazon for about $42. Here it is against the Kershaw Bare Knuckle. Scoot these over. Trying to figure out what my size comparison knives for the channel are going to be. As well as having to figure out the lighting. And we'll do two more. Here it is against the Spyderco PM2. I think that's a pretty no-brainer comparison knife. And my favorite knife of all time, the Cold Steel 8015. So a little bit smaller than that. Just a little bit. Alright, so let's get into this knife, if you guys can stand the lighting. Alright, so like I said, brown micarta, you can get this in a bunch of different colors. About $42 out of the box. It was centered. I've had this guy for about a week and a half, and I've been using it every day. I've been carrying it as either my primary or secondary knife. We have a steel clip, and it's very similar to a lot of Civivi clips. It's a loop over clip, and the screws are flat. They're recessed, but the clip itself is not. I'll talk about that later. It is reversible for lefties. You have thumb stud deployment, as well as flipper deployment. It is very smooth. It's running on bearings. And right out of the box, mine was very, very good. No wrist. Pops out reliably. And pops out reliably. So, overall, I'm pretty pleased with the action. As for using it, I think it's actually really, really, really decent. And right now I'm going to put in some clips of me going through some cardboard, and then I'll talk a little bit about the edge geometry and the overall profile of the blade and how it is just in, to carry day to day. All right, Sencut Scepter. Oh, this is actually a good, good view of how it is in the pocket. Very deep carry and nice clip, in and out very easily. All right. So as you can see, the blade, this is what I'd call a spear point. Some people might call it a drop point. I really think this is a spear point blade. It actually reminds me a lot of the Civivi Elementum in a lot of ways, which I don't have my Civivi Elementum with me right now. Wish I did, because it would be really, really interesting to compare the two. That might be a video I do in the future. Anyways, very, very thin blade stock, ground very well, full flat, not full flat grind, but it is a flat grind. I don't know exactly how thin it is behind the edge, but just, from my finger calipers, I would say, I'd say probably between 13 and 15 thousandths. It's very thin. So, got some cardboard here, and let's go ahead. That's pretty good. That last cut was cardboard's fault. It bent. And the edge, do I have any paper around here? I don't think I do, but the edge still feels Feels pretty good. Yeah. And speaking of the edge, the steel, the 9CR18 MOV, is a steel that I really don't have a problem with, and I think it's perfectly fine for a small EDC knife like this, and especially at the price, just fine. And just slipped off the flipper tab. That's something we need to talk about. Let's go find some paper and again do some more cutting. Got some paper. Let's see how the edge is held up. Like I said, I've been using this guy for about a week and a half, pretty regularly, and I did strop it once, but other than that, I haven't really seen much. And by the way, this is a good showcase of that action. Very, very nice action. Oh yeah, that edge is fine. Might need to do a little bit of something up there at the tip. Yeah, pretty good usable edge. One thing people complain about with spear point or drop point knives is sometimes you lose a little bit of the piercing that you'd get with like a Wharncliffe. This, we have a very, very thin tip, and the way the blade is shaped really allows you to get down on there and use the tip very, very well. So, no complaints there. Overall, I think this is a really, really great EDC knife, and honestly, I think basically anyone could get this knife and be pretty pleased with it. So, yeah. All right, we're gonna try a little something different with the table here. So if this lighting is a little bit better, do excuse me. Just getting started on this knife reviewing stuff. All right, so as you saw in those clips of me using it, this is a very, very nice knife. I'd call this a light EDC. You know, nothing super heavy. Personally, when it comes to my EDC uses, I vary a lot. I live and work on a cattle ranch, so I appreciate my big, beefy, hard-working knives. But I'm also a college student, so I'm always looking for what I call a classroom knife, which is something like this, where, you know, if I'm in town, if I'm going to class, which, I mean, 2020 didn't do very much of, you know, something that I can just slip in my pocket that's unobtrusive, pretty non-threatening, and honestly won't see that much heavy-duty cutting. And I think this knife fits that very, very well. Talking about the knife a little bit more in depth, this micarta is, focus, not the best, but I've seen worse. The blade has a nice stonewash, which is something I wish Civivi would do a lot more. In fact, if I haven't mentioned before, Sencut is part of the WE Knives company. This is a budget version. You've got the Sencut, Civivi, WE Knives. And well, we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a sec, but construction-wise, this feels like a Civivi. It really does. The action's very good. Going back to utility, this finger choil here is pretty functional. It does make for a decent sharpening choil. Thumb studs, pretty comfy. The hardware is all T8, which is really, really nice. Again, something from Civivi that I appreciate. So, another thing about this knife that kind of surprised me is you look in here, it actually has an internal stop pin, which is really, really cool. And in a lot of ways, because of that stop pin and because of the thinness of this handle, this knife reminds me of a mix between the Civivi Elementum, which I think I mentioned in the cardboard cutting video. I wish I had mine on me. But it reminds me of a mix between the Civivi Elementum and the Civivi McKenna, actually. And I think that's because, I mean, the McKenna has the internal stop pin, but also just the handle in general and the ergonomics. Both, they're basically exactly the same width. The McKenna's maybe just a hair thinner. As for the ergonomics, this knife, pretty decent, very neutral grip, and you can choke up. There's no jimping on the spine here, but I think that's okay because these thumb studs really kind of act as a good spot for your thumb to rest. So I appreciate that. What else do we need to go over here? Went over the action enough. Yes, we need to talk a little bit about some things that I don't like and some things that have me kind of wondering. I don't know, well, scratching my head. That's the term we'll go with, scratching my head. All right, nitpicks. So my first nitpick is actually with the access to the liner lock. By the way, secure lockup. But they don't give you a whole lot of access in there, and this is actually kind of sharp. So, I mean, it does take some some thumb torture to unlock. What else? Yeah, that's the big one. The flipper tab. I love this knife has thumb studs and a flipper tab. I appreciate that in all knives. It makes it really fun to play with. But this flipper tab is actually very easy to slide off of. And it is jimped. You can see right there. Focus. It is jimped, but they rounded the jimping off for comfort. But with how small this flipper tab is, I actually kind of wish they'd left the jimping just a tad bit sharper because it's very easy to slip off of that. And you've probably seen me slip off of it several times throughout the course of this video. Another nitpick is the clip. I really don't like how Civivi does these clips that sit, you know, above the scale there. And personal preference, I would rather have a clip that's recessed and screws that are round than screws that are flat and a clip that is not recessed. And the reason is this goes in and out of the pocket very, very well. I have no problems with that. The carry on this guy is fantastic. Very, very slender, very, very light. And the clip works super good. You've got a lot of clearance there. But what I don't like is that sometimes with these clips that are up here just sitting on top of the scale, they get a little bit of wiggle in them. And so if the clip is recessed in the scale, you don't get that wiggle. But that's really, really a minor complaint. Any other complaints? Honestly, not really. But this leads me on to a conversation about the Sencut in general. So Sencut really kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, we has had Civivi for not super long. I mean, Civivi is really not that old. And they are great knives. They really are. But, you know, when you're looking at the Sencut knives compared to the Civivi knives, where did I put my Praxis? I had it here. There it is. Whoops. This knife here, this Sencut knife, is the same price as the Praxis. And they're both using the same steel. I mean, they're similar materials, but sorry if you hear stuff blowing. There's a snowstorm coming in outside. But I'm wondering if maybe Civivi is going to move away from doing stuff like this. This is going to become Sencut's thing, and Civivi is going to focus more on this kind of stuff that's in the $60 to $120 range. Well, Sencut's going to be handling, you know, anything under $60. Because it is really, really weird. I mean, and the Praxis comes with, you know, all the Civivi packaging. I don't have this guy's box. It's just a cardboard box, but you get the Civivi packaging, stickers, cloth, all that good stuff. And it's the same price as this. So what I'm wondering is, you know, where does Sencut fit in? If this knife had the Civivi brand, it'd fit right in. At the $42 price point, it would... I'd love this as a Civivi. So I'm wondering, you know, Sencut has a few other models, and this is the only one that spoke to me, but I'm wondering, you know, what Sencut means for Civivi. But, anyways, we'll have to see what that brings in the future. For now, let's go ahead and go into my final opinions on this knife. Alright, overall opinion on the Sencut Scepter. Honestly, I love it. There are so many things to love about this little knife. The finish is good. Fit and finish is good. Carries well. Very small. Very, you know, non-threatening. One thing I forgot to mention, I'm looking at my notes here. Geez, I'm unorganized. Is the thumb studs are out of the way of the cutting edge because of this choil. So that's something that's good to see. Also another thing, geez, I am so disorganized looking at my notes. Something I remembered not liking is if you look at the thumb studs here, See how they don't exactly line up? Like they have the same pattern on them, but like the pattern, like this line here doesn't go all the way across. I mean, tiny nitpicks, but you know, whatever. Thought I mentioned it. So I think this is a great little knife, and especially at the $42 price point, micarta 9CR18, I do think it's worth it. I definitely recommend it. And I'm glad I picked it up. Why did I pick it up? Well, because it was a new knife, and I'm a new knife reviewer trying to get out there, so get a new knife that everyone's going to be looking for reviews of. So, yeah, because I need that knife community clout. But in all seriousness, I'm really glad I picked up this knife, not just for making some silly YouTube video. I'm glad because it's a good tool. It's a knife that actually I'm going to keep around for a very, very long time. And I think it's a knife that's going to be very easy for me to just slip into my pocket if I'm going to town, to class. This is going to be a really, really compelling option for a smaller EDC knife. And I'm really glad to have gotten a chance to handle it. Well, so that's the end of my review. I hope you enjoyed. Pretty disorganized, I know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback in the comment section below. I'm still working out some kinks on the channel lighting, obviously, and you know, just where I want to, you know, what I want to do with this channel. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.